Hey, what's going on everybody, and welcome back for a little update and a sneak peek into the mods that I am working on. We did a poll not too long ago asking if you guys would like to see this as sort of a weekly series, and it was a pretty overwhelming yes. Although there were some people concerned with me pushing myself to do weekly updates, as maybe that'll make the mod either rushed or I won't have something to show every week, and I wanted to address that really quick before we begin. So the thing with this update series is I would like it to be weekly as much as possible, and personally I think that having a deadline like that will push me to get more done on my mods than I would typically. That being said, I can understand the concern of it feeling rushed, but I don't anticipate to do that. I want to take my time and make sure that things are done correctly, and quite frankly, if a week goes by and I don't have enough to show in a mod update, then I just won't. This won't be an absolutely 100% every week thing, this is more so just when I have something to show, so there's nothing to fear in that regard. Now as for this week, because it's been a while since we've actually checked in on the mods I've been working on, there's a good bit to show, so this will probably be more sizable than future updates, although with future updates it may just be 5 minutes, hey, here's what we've done during the week, and move on. But this week, like I said, pretty sizable stuff to show for at least one mod, a couple things for a couple other mods, and more so some questions for you guys. So let's just go ahead and jump in with the attachment project, as that has been my main focus for a while now, and there is definitely a lot more new stuff as well as some changes to some of the old things. So let's just jump in with that in-game and talk about what's new. So the attachment project, we have done a whole lot of stuff. Now I say this every update video, but I do just want to mention it really quick in case this is the first time you've seen anything about this project. The goal is to add a bunch of new attachments to the vanilla weapons, and maybe even make some changes to some of the existing ones to remove redundancy when it comes to model use, but add some redundancy when it comes to options. So that's really what we're doing here, just adding more attachments to the vanilla game and reworking a couple of things here and there that just didn't make sense, and trying to make the weapons feel a little bit more realistic, but also have a lot of options for the player in terms of customization. So here we can see the basic combat rifle. Now, if you are a user of my immersive combat rifle remesh, that mod is designed with my attachment pack in mind. Now you can use them both separately, but it's really intended to be used together for the best possible experience. So here we can see the basic combat rifle, and we have been doing a lot to modify this thing into a really cool, versatile weapon that can be used for a lot of different needs, as I feel like this is the most generic assault rifle in the game that we have, since the vanilla assault rifle is a bit different. So this is going to be our platform for doing the most stuff, and that's why I chose to do it first. I think a lot of future weapons are going to be easier to modify. So here we have the basic version of the combat rifle, but let's see what we can do with some of these attachments. Here's another pretty basic one, but if you use it in tandem with the immersive combat rifle overhaul, you see we have our cool 45 conversion, along with the new short stock. Now it has been properly renamed to the folding stock, but when you find this weapon now, it will have a short stock like this, because the short stock from the original mod just didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Even in the wasteland, people are going to want something to brace their arm against, so I feel like this is a more realistic alternative. That being said, I do plan to add in some junk stocks that will be found in the very early levels of the game that seem like something that raiders could throw together. Moving on, we have some other cool stuff that we can do. Here's a DMR style version of the rifle. I think I've shown this marksman rifle stock off before, but this is actually going to be a mesh replacer. Now this is one of those situations where I talked about removing redundancy. In the past, the marksman stock here and the recoil compensating stock shared a model, and that just didn't make any sense to me. So now the marksman stock has its own unique style that I think is very fitting of a marksman style stock. Now we also have a look at one of the newest additions to the pack, and that is different patterns that you can throw on some of these parts. Here we have the camouflage in conjunction with J.K. Rooz's night vision scope model, and also one of the new suppressors added. Now this is an in-game suppressor, this is from the Nuka World DLC, but still, just having that variety so you can choose exactly what you want your rifle to look like is pretty nice. And a small spoiler, J.K. Rooz has given permission to use these night vision scopes as part of the mod, so I do plan on having these as night vision replacements, that way you have even more scope models to choose from. And we'll get more into that in a little bit. And finally, another big addition that we have here is a change to some of the tactical style stocks. They actually change up here. We have a heat shield that extends the Picatinny rail a little bit to make it a little bit more tactical and militaristic, something that may be used by special ops groups, stuff like that. But it's definitely something that you're not going to be building until later in the game. This isn't going to be running rampant in your wasteland. So let's take a look at all the attachments we have so far in the combat rifle. The receivers are the same unless you're using the immersive combat rifle pack, in which case you'll have the 45 and 308 conversion receivers. But barrels are also the same. I have yet to move on to those, although I do intend to add a sort of mid-length between the short and long barrel. The magazines are all the same as well, but what we really get to is the stocks here. So like I said earlier, we have our folding stock as the starter stock. When you first pick this thing up, rather than the short stock, you'll have a folding stock. We have 3 different versions of the full stock here. We have the generic wood stock, the polymer stock, and then the camo stock. So you have some nice colors to choose from. That marksman stock, like I said earlier, has the really cool marksman style back end, sort of like an SVD. The recoil compensating stock, I did my best to make this thing look better. It's a bit awkward, and before it would just use the generic front end with the wood, and that didn't look nice to me, so I gave it a black polymer along with that heat shield, and I think that looks a lot nicer. It combines the grays and the blacks just like on this back end here. Then we have the tactical stocks. These are going to have the marksman carbine style stocks from New Vegas, in conjunction with some polymer front ends, again with that heat shield for a more tactical look if you want that. But of course, if you don't, then you don't have to use it. I'm trying to maintain a nice balance between lore-friendly and modern, without crossing the line between the two. And then we have the tan version of the tac stock. This is for people who want to have a nice color conversion. Maybe you're running the Desperados overhaul, and you want a more desert-style stock. I think I'm going to add some grooves into the foregrip here to give a little bit more that catches the eye, but for now it's just a kind of plain, but there'll be something there in the future. Now on top of that, we do have a lot of sight options, including a reorder of the sights. Starting with these standard sights, we actually do have a new model for these. We'll go ahead and show those off because I think they're pretty cool. I believe we've shown them off in past videos, but just to be sure and thorough, we'll go ahead and throw that on. So when you pick this up, these are the new iron sights for the weapon. A little bit more usable in my opinion. The last ones were pretty plain, and this is just a little bit nicer on the eyes, and it helps separate it from that combat shotgun. Heading back into the menu though, let's see what other things that we have. As of right now, those are the only iron sights I've redone. I do intend to add a glow sight variant, as well as rework the ring sights again, just to be different from the combat shotgun, because when you throw this on, it looks like we're just looking at another shotgun mod. I have renamed the reflex sight from the vanilla game into the tritium sight. I was digging around in the files, and it turns out these are not intended to be battery operated. Instead, it just has a tritium dot painted onto a lens. So that's pretty interesting. So I've renamed it as such. If you've seen the laser sight in my previous little teaser video, we now have a functioning laser sight that I've included as an optic. Now, the reason I've done this as opposed to adding it as a barrel attachment is I wanted to have a little bit of balance. Now you actually have to choose if you want a laser sight versus an optic, and I feel like this is more fitting of the Fallout style. Sure, laser sights could exist, but I think this is a little bit more fitting for the era, and not to mention it has a nice little hookup to a fission battery there, which was fun to model. Moving on though, we have some more modern style sights. I know some people are going to be opposed to these, but in my opinion, I think they can totally exist in the universe. I've also tried to include some West-Tech logos to make them as lore-friendly as possible, while still bringing in a little bit of that modern touch. Now, another thing I've done, and this is something I've been wanting to do for a while, is added variety to the scopes in the game. Before, the short, medium, and long scope were all the exact same model, they just had a different reticle. But now they actually have different models. The short scope here takes from the lever action rifle. The medium scope takes from the handmade assault rifle with some tweaked little attachment points there. And then the long scope is the traditional scope as before, each one getting bigger whenever you increase in size. Then we have the night vision scopes, like I said, with integration from JK Ruse. I actually have some plans for these, but I don't want to talk too much about those yet until I get some permissions. And then finally, the recon scopes are the same as always, and I've reordered things so that they appear nicer in the menu. I actually kind of want to remodel these recon scopes so that they have different models depending on short or long as well, and I don't necessarily like the paint scheme of the vanilla ones, so we'll see on that. And then finally for muzzles, we do have some changes. Again, when it comes to redundancy, it's really weird that there was a muzzle brake and a compensator that use the exact same model despite serving different functions. So I've changed that as well. I'm working on some test stuff for the bayonet. This is definitely not going to be in the final release. I was just playing around with some things. I don't have any plans for it yet, but I do want to change it out from the vanilla one. The compensator now has its own model, as we can see here. There is now a new flash hider, which has the 3-prong M16 style approach. And then the muzzle brake is the vanilla style muzzle brake, as I actually do really like the design of that one. And then for suppressors, we have 2 suppressors. Right now we have the handmade and the regular suppressor. It's probably not going to be called handmade in final release, it's just named that because it comes from the handmade assault rifle. But I'm thinking more of something along the lines of a heavy suppressor. I've also used the hunting rifle suppressor model for the combat rifle, as before it used the shotgun suppressor, which right on the side said 12 gauge, which is not good for immersion. So we've changed that out to something that's a little bit more believable, along with some different variations. Now, on the topic of handmade suppressors, I do want to make a handmade styled suppressor, maybe out of a tin can or a Nuka-Cola bottle or something like that. I think that would be pretty cool. Now, in case you missed the laser teaser for whatever reason, I'm going to show it off in-game just because I think it's a really cool mechanic. Typically, you're using lasers in sort of a hipfire capacity, and while that is possible, this is actually more as a sight. Whenever you aim down sights now, you'll see we zoom in and we're using the laser as our reticle, which I thought was something pretty unique. I haven't seen a mod that does that yet. One thing I definitely wanted to show off in this video was our hunting rifle. When we last checked in with this thing, I think I only had the new iron sights on, and those will be in the previous video, which, by the way, there is a playlist on all of the updates on these, just in case you missed one and you want to see everything that's going to be added to this mod. But one of the biggest things I've done is change out the stocks. Now, at the moment, the short stock is still the same as it was, though I do want to take an approach like I did to the combat rifle and add some sort of a wire stock onto the back, as this is not something you want to be using with a pistol grip. But as you can see, there's 3 different variants of the full stock now. We have the traditional wood one, we have a polymer version, which took way too long for me to get that black just how I wanted it, but as you can see, we also have some nice stippling. And we also have a camouflage version. And personally, I really, really like this one. I've always wanted a camo addition to the stock, and I really like how this one came out. And then we still have the marksman stock as before, but now we have 2 different options. We have the green version and the black version. That way you get to really choose the colors you want. They're going to have the exact same statistics, but if you want a black one instead of a green one, now you have that option. Along with that, we've also changed out the sights like we did earlier with the short, medium, and long scope. So now you have the option for the short scope from the lever action, the medium scope from the handmade rifle, and then the long scope from the base game. I really like the medium scope on this one. I've even added a little rail so that it attaches properly, but this gives a proper hunting rifle vibe, in my opinion. Now, before we wrap up here, the attachment project is just one of the mods I'm working on. Initially, that was what I wanted to get done first before I moved on to anything else, but the more I work on it, the more I want to change and add. So I decided to go ahead and start working on some of my future weapon mods that I can hopefully release before the attachment pack. That way you guys at least get something to get your hands on. So what you're looking at on screen right now is the Skewer launcher. And in case you didn't see the little teaser video that I dropped, this is going to be a skewer firing launcher of sorts that is over the shoulder rather than the typical version that you've seen in the harpoon gun. Now, functionally, this thing is going to work just like a railway rifle or a harpoon cannon, and some people are saying that it's a bit redundant, but the idea is to give another way to shoot this thing, and it's going to be integrated into the leveled list, whereas the railway rifle is a unique, and the harpoon gun can only be found in Far Harbor. This is something that raiders will be using to launch gigantic pieces of metal at you, and that you can soon pick up and then throw back at them. Now, at first I just threw this together as a concept to see if I could get the harpoon working in the missile launcher animation where you'll actually load it into the tube, and that part worked flawlessly. Now, that being said, I don't want this thing to just be the missile launcher. It's going to have its own design, and that's where you guys come in. We're in a very unique state with this thing where it's functioning, but I just don't have a design set up for it. It's heavily inspired by the Skewer launcher from Halo Infinite, though I don't think it's going to look like that in the final releases. That's just not very Fallout. Now, I've run a few concepts in my head as to what this thing might look like, but I thought this could be a fun opportunity to integrate the community into the mod development process. So with that, I'm going to open up a new section of our Discord that you can actually find in the link down below, where we can post art and submit things and ideas for future mods. Now, this isn't some sort of competition where you submit your art and I'm going to pick the best one and make it into a mod. No, this is more of a brainstorming session that we can do together. If you guys want, you can draft up a design for what this Skewer launcher might look like, post it there, and some of your features may make it into the final mod. and then we can discuss together and come up with ideas for unique things that could be added and just make a mod together as a community, which is a fun and unique thing that we can do together as a channel. Being able to interact with you guys and meeting so many of you at the Discord has been such a fun opportunity, and being able to work together on something is going to be super cool. So I look forward to this, and hopefully we'll make some really cool stuff together. Again, if you want to submit any ideas, just go ahead and head over to the Discord. We have a mod ideas section where you can type out ideas, or I'm going to add the new art section where you can post up some concepts. So yeah, I think that just about wraps up everything we're working on. The next step for the attachment pack is really finishing up and fine-tuning those combat rifle attachments. I think we're really close to the goal line of where I want those to be. As soon as those are done, I'm going to be releasing it for some early beta testing to our patrons over at the Patreon, and hopefully we can get all of the bugs and kinks worked out. And then from there, I think we should be able to move on to all of the other weapons much more quickly than it took on the combat rifle. That one definitely took a whole lot of work, but I think moving on, like I said, it's going to be a lot quicker process, and hopefully we'll have this thing up pretty soon. But yeah, I think that's about it. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you're looking forward to the mods that I am working on. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to drop a rating. If somehow you're not subscribed already, consider subscribing for more videos just like this, and I hope to see you in the next one. Peace! And really quick, I'd like to make a shout out to all of our patrons. Your donations are greatly appreciated and really help to support the channel and videos just like this one. So again, thank you.